settings. Can you guys still hear me, by the way? Yes, okay. Okay, well, you should tell me that, because when I ask questions, good old-fashioned PowerPoint, yeah. Because the thing is, I have two examples, right? So the first one, okay, so this one is, of course, in Excel spreadsheet. And then we have this. I think I could have just done better. Okay, so this webinar it is actually a digital forensics related webinar. So it's not only, let's say, for cybersecurity. So let me answer this guy one more time. Right, okay. So here's the PowerPoint presentation, which I'm going to be presenting. Here's the thing, I wish that Discord had some function where I can just, like actually show the presentation without having to click. Can I just do this pop out? Can I do a pop out actually? I hope if I maximize this. Yeah, but if I this is wait, I think if I update this right with system format, the pop out itself, it should not close if I manage to somehow override the properties. So Discord.exe, which one is it pop out? Now I have no idea. How do I just do Unity boost priority page priority miscellaneous always on top? I'm looking for something that bring to front. Okay, but this makes no sense. Can just maximize this and then do something like this? Okay. Well, this probably doesn't really work, but so I hope that you guys can see this right on full screen. So maybe that is yeah. So I just try to find why did I never think about this? So here is a thing that enables you to have this always in front. But anyway, so you guys can see this, right? The PowerPoint presentation itself. Oh, very good. Okay. So the foundations of forensic timelining. As you guys know, the topic of today's webinar is how to construct a timeline of events. This doesn't only include or involve event logs, it also includes prefetch and other residual data, especially MFT and stuff like the indexes of applications or of the device. So this is going to be the reconstruction of a timeline. I also have an example over here. It's a very short one, but this is, I believe, a very useful webinar because I'm going to be explaining how you should begin analyzing the devices. Everybody has their own way. You guys should also have your own ways, but here is how to collect necessary or relevant evidence. Before that, we're going to begin with the definitions. So, what is a forensic timeline and what is it really used for? For example, this time, don't be scared by the terminologies because all this refers to is basically an order of the timeline, right? So don't be scared if you hear forensic timeline. It means that it is a static capture of events that have logged their dates of occasion. For example, user journal has a timeline, so when exactly changes of the device or applications happened. Now, on the broader scale, which is also why people use Timeline Explorer, is that multiple combinations of artifacts that give you data or data of the operations that occurred on the device, for example, file deletions, file recovery, accessing Discord, accessing other applications, accessing shell recent and stuff like that. That is the broader understanding or the definition of a forensic timeline. There are two main categories or subcategories of forensic timelines. First category is residual, so what you would also call non-volatile, so residual, and non.
Mic off.
These two are the same things, okay? So that's what you have here. So these are the persistent artifacts on the storage, which is such as the master file table, so MFT, registry, and other logs. That includes event logs, and that includes journal. And then you have the volatile data. You should read more about volatile data from my free screenshot guide, which also includes the definitions of highly, moderately, low, and other types of volatile data. That is obviously randoms, that is obviously process memory, and those are the sockets, and the live PCAPs, which is the network connections. So these two refer to network connections and stuff like that. So the next page tells you basically exactly why it matters. I'm sure that you guys probably don't even care about this, because this is more on the investigation side of things. Timeline matters because you have to, as an expert, you have to prove what you are claiming, right? So, as I have mentioned in the very first, also there is a PowerPoint presentation in the channels that mentioned that forensics, so digital forensics, is a subfield of cybersecurity, and it can be used by for civil and criminal investigations. It can also be used for other purposes. For example, in the civil litigation, you want to prove that this chat, so this conversation, actually happened between two people. That is when they call a forensic expert. So the digital forensics expert who exports the chat dialogues and then connects those to the IP addresses and stuff like that. Which is why you also sometimes need the court warrant for those things. And for the criminal investigations, which is what we deal with primarily, because digital forensics is vastly and mainly used by the law enforcement when they conduct investigations. So in this case, there is an intrusion reconstruction, so they tie in attacker actions to resources, but this, in other words, refers to identify who was the attacker. As we have covered in the previous webinar, we had a case study which basically showed civil litigation, so the theft of the corporational data, which basically was what our forensic investigation was about. And then you have the sources and the time-based evidence. So the sources, as I have already mentioned first, those are there are limited sources. The primary source of digital forensic evidence that can be used for timeline reconstruction is evidence of execution and evidence of existence. What that means is that we have Uncaged, for example. You guys know that Uncaged doesn't update only every time that an application is executed. It updates every time the application is updated. There is a new installation of the application and stuff or Windows first installed on the device and stuff like that. And we also have obviously the event logs MFT log file, which is not related to USN journal, but it is below the USN journal. There's also registry prefetch and browser databases, which are not. I mean, I'm going to also touch on those because this is a forensic course. And then we have the network, which I'm only going to show you guys firewall, proxy, and DNS logs, which you guys will be able to also retrieve from System Informer. Although it doesn't really show you the time itself. And then you also have the system logs and telemetry, and then you have the mobile applications. So because we're on the Windows system, I'm going to have to show you the extraction and analysis of mobile phones differently, which means that I'm going to have to construct a PowerPoint presentation after this with my phone being analyzed and stuff like that, which I'm going to try to do as soon as possible. I also have other PowerPoints to make and publish. And so you guys can rely on me on that. Also, we have the non-volatile and volatile memory, or the volatile timelines. So those that update every time something happens, and those that don't. And then we have the okay. How do I go back? Okay. And then we have the practices. So how exactly you would validate and gather the volatile data. In this case, we obviously have the first ever mention of volatility. Although this doesn't really refer to volatility as the forensic tool, things refer to the volatile generation of, or volatile order of the operations on the device. For example, when we take, so let me give you an example on this volatility order. For example, when we take the system information, right? Right, so we take this, and then we start to analyze or monitor when something was updated or when something was changed on the firewall, for example. This is a volatile order. What you're looking for here is not just the IP addresses and remote addresses, but the timestamp, right? So this is the volatile order, okay? These typically update. See, these just updated. So this is what you would use for the purposes of timeline creation. So that's what this refers to. So this doesn't just refer to volatility or workbench. And then you have the preservation. Yes, we have talked about the importance of preservation of evidence. First of all, before you preserve evidence, you have to capture it and you have to isolate it from the system for it to not update every time. This means that when you open, for example, when you open journal trace, that already means that you have captured your journal. However, we very well know that if you close journal trace and reopen it, the data is going to be new in there, and there will be something new logged into your journal. That's when you have to isolate that data separately. Which is why I don't really use journal trace all the time when I analyze user journal sequences. I would rather use volatility for that, or not volatility, Velociraptor for that purpose, because it also exports user entries of archives. Which, by the way, user entry of archives is quite interesting because there are since I know you guys want to know about that, there are bypasses and malwares that use the archive of Windows in order to prevent user journal logging something new for discovery purposes. And then you have the normalization and correlation of evidence of the timeline, which means that every time, most of the time, I think, the forensic tools, for example, the Sigma tools that you use display time in universal time zone. So it is not the local time zone that they take, but it's rather the UTC time zone. So what you would want to do is to convert that into the local time zone, which, by the way, it is very simple to do. For example, I'm going to give you an example if I can just read on. I should have come prepared. I thought I wouldn't need those, but I do. Well, let me see. What can I just show you very quickly? Okay, let's just do prefetcher, because this allows you to also convert time, for the executions. After that PowerPoint, we're gonna go into the practical details. Well, I'm gonna ask you to ask me questions first. Um, so the practical details are quite useful and very important, especially for somebody. By the way, if you guys want, I think you guys have a great startup knowledge already for actual job opportunities. So if you plan on maybe just becoming an expert, you can think about that a little more. Right, so as you can see here, we have the showtime in GMT, which is Greenwich Meridian time, and the second one is showtime in UTC. This one shows the local time zone, and this one shows the Greenwich. So you guys can have enough knowledge if you want to be an expert for those types of forensic investigations, so you guys will have the foundations of that after these courses. But right, so I can't just license you. Right. Oh, oops. I just closed everything. Okay. The next thing we have, obviously, is not that important, and this is also timestamp times, and blah blah. You guys can read those after. So we have the evidence and courtroom considerations. You guys can read these yourselves because it's not really that important. However, I want to mention about the tools and visual outputs. Now, the reason this comes before the courtroom considerations is that now every expert, you guys might be wondering why exactly are experts using things like OS forensics, and why most of the tools have create case options. And that is because you always have to have the sources of your investigation. So when exactly you conducted an investigation, what tools did you use, so that it is easier to verify what exactly you did. Now, I'm going to also be touching the OS forensics in this webinar after this PowerPoint, because it will be my primary showcase to you, so I might as well download it now. And I recommend that you guys actually use this often, because it's very useful for any type of forensic investigation or screen sharing, in other words. Right, so we also have Plazo, log to timeline, and I've seen this app once really. It has huge potential for screen sharing. The only reason we never used this was because it was 200 megabytes, so that's a lot of time to waste on downloading it, although it has a lot of things. So here's another thing. Sleuthkit is also something that we're gonna be using, the Sleuthkit, because it has a lot of useful applications. Log to timeline is not important for you. Time schedules for Linux operating systems, so you guys don't really need those. And then you have the courtroom considerations. Now this is rather a legal, on the legal side of things, which depends on the jurisdiction. I think I should not talk about this because although I'm gonna say this once, and simply that you have to be very precise how you gather, how you collect, isolate, and analyze evidence. Because the moment you damage a computer, or for example, a data on that computer, or overwrite it, your evidence will be inadmissible in court, no matter what. So that's why people came up with RAM dumps. That's why they came up with imaging those RAM dumps, which means that they reconstruct a computer through those RAM dumps. So it's like installing Windows with all the necessary evidence that you already need. So there's that. Okay. Now this one is practical checklist. You guys can often look at this. So this is like a step-by-step what you guys would be doing or using for actual forensic analysis. But now let's go to get to the practical things. Practical things. Now, first I have this evidence over here. That this sample over here. So, so what exactly does this tell you? So what exactly does this timeline tell you? So as you can see, first of all, the things that you should be looking at is the time. So timestamp in UTC, and there is the original local timestamp with 3 hours difference from the UTC, so the universal time. Now, the thing tells you, so every time you open an application, or you begin an analysis, how do I open this? Begin an analysis. My God, how do I resize this? Okay, there we go. So that I'm also able to read your questions. So here we have the timestamps in the UTC, so the universal time zone. You see these logs, so these logs don't really belong to any applications. So these logs were just essentially the event log residues or timestamps. This is an event log extraction. And as you can see, you can find a lot of information here. This first one, for example, the description was from the Houston Journal, because this gives you the creation time of the document. By the way, this is not actually taken from anywhere. This is like highly AI compressed and regenerated. I mean, this is just a showcase, which I'm gonna get to right after this. And things are gonna get more interesting, basically. So after this, you have the description of everything. So this is a timeline, right? What you're looking at right now is a timeline of events. In this case, you have the host name, so who exactly did those things, and then you have the collector. So you have host A, host B, and collector. Collector is the name of what exactly gathered the contents from this entire page. So I'm going to show you this exactly how it works in the actual analysis environments. As you can see here, we have the event viewer. Thanks to this event viewer, if you go to Windows Logs and go to security, what you come across with is the actions of a user on the device. There are 3 important channels in event logs. First channel, obviously, is the applications channel. The second one is the security channel. And the third one is the system channel. What you would need yourself for proper analysis, but these 3 channels are all you really need for an actual thorough investigation. But I'll also, okay, wait, whoops. Okay, let me open this was forensics, so that closes. Right, so you have this, the security, which is the audit log, so it audits what exactly happened. In my case, which I think I won't be able to show you guys this without doing that. So in my case, you see this, so the log name is the security. The event ID, which has the category name as well, is the special logon. So somebody logged on, okay? The computer name is Constantine, so this is my computer. And then you have the details of it, the special privileges logon, and then you have basic details over here, which shows you which exact system interacted with this computer. So you have the activity ID, you have the computer name, and most often, if there is somebody else that logged on with their email, that will show up here. So all of that. Now this is an account logged on, right? So this shows you, adjusting this timeline, this just shows you that the host, so Constantine, logged into a computer. So the account name Constantine $, and also shows you the domain of it. So the work group is the default Windows group, and then you have the name of the accessor, so whoever accessed this device. So in this case, let's say host A. If there were more users, so more accounts on the device, it would show you here. It will also show you if there is a third-party user connecting to this device, and that will be host B in this case. As you can see, this shows you the remote desktop connection as a service backup. So the username of this was service backup. So you have the first user creating this file, then running PowerShell. They started some command line, and then they established a connection. So there's an outbound TCP connection, which means that this person initiated a connection request. And they invited this user, so host B, to connect to the local device. And then host A modified a file, which is the application config.json. Here's an issue. If we assume that, now here's the problem of this connection. If we assume that the remote desktop connection separates mouse access by users, that means that the file modification was done by host A, so the owner of the device. However, just like with AnyDesk, if the user who is connected to your computer does changes or issues something to your device, that will not exactly tell us that it was the person who connected to this device that committed that action. So it won't tell us that it was user or host B that did it, okay? So this is one of the other problematics when it comes to forensic analysis. What your task is now, as a forensic expert who was invited in this case, right? Your task now is to tell who exactly made this change, okay? How are we supposed to tell that? Yes, exactly. It's impossible that you are going to be able to do that. However, what you can do is that you will have to analyze the device of the person who was connected here, because if AnyDesk is a useful software that also logs everything, it is supposed to log or have a trace which shows you that that host A was inactive when host B was doing something. And with these cases, by the way, in most of those cases, there are a couple of things that you would be able to do. However, there's not much that you can do. So it's a forensic analysis. The first thing you can do is obviously see if A host or the B host was recording this through AnyDesk recordings. The second thing that you can do is try to see if the thumbnails cache, so there's thumb cache, which takes a snapshot of your device every now and then, screenshotted this interaction. We're gonna get to that later. We're probably gonna cover that for the future webinars this month. And so this is a problem. Now you have no idea who exactly did this and what exactly happened. We also have the collector, so it was a collector state. Now, the way you would be able to tell this, however, is that you would see. So every application that is used for a remote connection is supposed to have those protections, right? So you are supposed to be able to distinguish between those two. Now, this isn't a problematic case. I'm gonna leave this case this is going to be in the test, by the way, at the end of this month, because you guys can basically come up with a solution yourself, because it's not impossible. You will be able to learn how to tell who exactly modified this file, or basically the theoretical knowledge of it. Now we go through the OS forensics and see if there is something that you guys can spot that OS forensics has that might help you with this collection. Now, every time somebody edits episode models, yes, the reason we can tell this is because you are going to be able to tell who was logged in on the system when that happened, okay? So, for example, if Constantine was logged into the system and somehow, out of nowhere, he took the administrative privileges on itself to delete that user, and that user actually gets deleted, then it means that it was Constantine who did that, okay? So these things are the challenges that forensic specialists would have to deal with. And now I'm gonna wait for worse forensics. Now, about the timeline. It is very important to actually construct a timeline of events that happened or occurred on the device. It is okay, right, it's popped up. What that means is that I'm gonna show you the first step of OS forensics. This is gonna take us quite some time because I'm gonna be explaining everything about this tool. It is a very powerful analysis tool that you can use. And then we're gonna move on to something new, for example, the event logs, if you want to. Yes, of course, because event logs will show firewall logs. Otherwise, you'll have to just go to Windows Firewall and somehow try to check the inbound and outbound connections. Another thing, obviously, is the NS, so this service, so like UTC and UDP process calls. Wait for this now. Eventually, forensic and modify the recommend whether this becomes inadmissible. Depends what you modify. Okay. But yes, that's basically the point. So we have this utility, the OS forensics. Okay. So Tom should say no. To self-view modification, no. Um, so as long as you don't damage, that's why you open those applications without having the possibility to edit them, right? So that's what really matters. So in this case, okay, as you can see, we have a lot of things here. Um, a lot of things, a lot of possibilities over here, which begins with the triage. So this is the collection of a case. What you begin with in OS forensics is to create by creating your case. As you can see here, it gives you the definitions, so the explanations at the very end, as you can see here. This is normally the first step in an investigation. So if you click this, it's going to take you to the case window. So as you can see, there are different case types as well. So for example, we have the civil case. Let's say we have a criminal case, because that's what we usually deal with. And then we have the name of the case. You'll notice how the timeline rules that I talked about in the presentation apply here. That's the case. You can't, because then you have to prove that this image was not modified and that this image was taken on a not modified state of it. It is not really. They also have to reconstruct what you did for it to be admissible, or you have to create a report, which OS Forensics also allows you to do. Now, follow me with this. There's a new case. Let's say the name of the case is the name of the case is I guess third party party access to the device. Then we have the type of the case, which is a criminal case, and then we have the investigator's name. So this will be your name in this case. Then we have the name of the organization. In this case, you can name this whatever you want. In our case, let's say we work for the FBI, again, the organization, but you have to say the full name of it. And then you have the, let's just call this learn if you are, says. Then you have the contact details. Contact details, what this refers to is how exactly you are going to be reaching through the investigator. So, for example, my phone number, blah, blah, blah. Or the address, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so it's here. And then you have the time zone. As I said, you have to always construct these properly. You can use the Pacific time, or the UTC, which is for the US and Canada, or you can basically also convert this to the time zone of your investigation. This includes pretty much all of the countries. And this is, let's just go with the Pacific time. And then you have the account for daylight saving time, which means that, and you also just to display time zone on dates. So display format, which is the default format, you can also make it so that it tells you the date exactly, word by word. And then the default drive, obviously, is a C drive that we have the acquisition type. And then we have the live acquisition of the current machine. You do this because you don't really have a capture or a disk that you have inserted here. Like, for example, RAM dump or a memory dump would qualify as the second one, like the investigate disks from another machine. In this case, we have the live acquisition. And then we have the case folder. So this is where the output is going to be saved. And then we have the log case activity. Always enable this because this gives you ideas. And then you also have more other fields, for example, the case categories. You can recolor those if you want to. You can also just, edit these, remove the categories of the case and stuff like that. And you have the offense and custody data. Offense, so what is the offense? What is somebody charged with? So this is a conventional crime. Accessing computers. Well, in this case, it's like a computers without prior permission of the owner. Let's just call it that in simple words. And then we have the analysis requested by. This is where you would type the name of the requesting organization. In this case, there is a prosecution. The prosecution side is requesting your analysis. Prosecutor of the United State or district attorney, whoever you want, the district prosecutor. And then we have the name of the suspect. Let's call the suspect Mini Mind Void and 2020. So we have two suspects in this case, okay? And then we have the date and time, obviously. This is the seizure of evidence, so when exactly this was captured. So what you would do, so the time evidence is, so you when exactly you got the computer itself, not current time, when you got the computer itself. Yes, exactly. There. And the location of seizure, let's just say, Washington, D.C., I don't know. Then we have the legal authority for search. This is something that you have with, you have the legal authority, yes, exactly, the permit, or who exactly gave you that. And just state whatever, I have a permit for the frog, okay. And then you have the chain of custody. So this one, where is this? This one is linked to the description of evidence. So you can add the description of evidence. So there's an evidence number, for example, there is 2 evidences, or like, let's say 5. There's a 5th evidence, and then we have the quantity. So 2 quantity, description of evidence, event logs, timeline. So when you extract those, that's what you would really put in this. And then you have the chain of custody and stuff like that. Then you have the custom fields if you want to add those fields. I know for what reason, but these are rather for actual professionals to deal with. Then what else do we have? Okay, description of evidence and case narrative. Now this one, okay, can I? Then I probably have to open this as admin, but whatever. But basically press OK. Now the case has been opened, right? So this case has been created, and this is where you manage the case. With this case, what you have to do now is obviously add the evidences. So for example, yes, you actually manage the case locally. This ensures that whatever you just... By the way, that is why when you see that somebody's computer or electronic devices are taken by the police, they always ask the police to make sure that nothing is deleted, because they analyze everything on this device specifically. However, this ensures, so as forensics, ensures that nothing is modified accidentally, so everything remains on the device. And then you have the... Now, what do we add to the case? So we add an attachment. Attachment refers to a file, so whatever file you want to add to this. Let's add this timeline itself, okay? Now this gives you the title of this, so this is a activity timeline in our case. Let's just call this CSV. And then we have the category. So what exactly is this? Is this a file? Is it a document? Now let's say that it is chat logs. And then you have the note for these. These are made by AI. And then just add this case. Now every time you want to check this, then just double click on this item or evidence, and it opens you. Or you can just also open with an internal viewer. So the contents of the file, for example, here you see the contents of the file. And you also just can do the file viewer if it allows you to. I think I just crashed it. So what this does is that it basically right-click opens it. Yeah, I just crashed it. I hope that this... Okay, good. Now, this is what you do after this. How much access do you get using the trial version versus the full one? So you get pretty much unrestricted access for 13 days. The access is unrestricted, but all you have to do is delete and reinstall it for the new sample. Now, what you do is you can add to the case the device itself. This is going to basically image the file, and it is also going to so when you press OK, now you have this C disk to the device. Now this has the entire contents of this disk. So this is basically FTP imager right now, right here. So you can also just enable a search for mismatched files or file name search, or we can also create an index, create signatures, go to options. For example, show the dates of those, calculate the size, show volume shadow copies, and show deleted files, and display sizes in megabytes. When you press OK, this just gives you access to the entire thing over here. So for example, if you want to go to the downloads, so my downloads, this is going to recalculate exactly what directory you have accessed, and this is going to show you even a lot of things. Okay, this shows you a lot of things. What you can do also is that you can right-click the file of your choice, and you have a lot of things, as you can see here. Then you can go to the offset itself. You can also just hash the file if you want to. and you can also open the file somehow. Now, this is a faster way of, for example, opening databases, because it also has built-in databases, and you can also just open this with a registry viewer if it is supported by it, although I don't think that it is. And as you can see over here, you see what exactly was going on in there with the file itself, so there is a report of it. So you can also just open or analyze the shadow copies, if you do have volume shadow copies, that is, and basically everything is over here. Let's close this one because we're gonna get to that first. But first, what do we do here? Well, not only deleted things, but also older snapshots of it. Now here's what you do after this. Now you have the case, okay? Now when you go to start, you can always just go to manage case, and you have this entire case. Then you image the device. So this creates the disk image. So in this case, a capture of a physical drive, or whichever you want. In my case, I'm gonna just use the logical drive, which is the C disk itself. Describe this, so the C disk of the suspect. And then you have the location place, so where exactly you captured these and blah blah. Just to police department. And then you just do attach image metadata to case, okay? So this will be attached immediately to the case itself. And then you can also hash this. I'm gonna use this one. Okay, location, target image file. Oh, do I have the, oh, this requires the target of it. How about I do the physical drive raw image? Oh, okay, this one is a raw image, which means this is gonna image it. So you have to create. So first we have to start imaging, and then we have to create an image, and then we have to add it. But yeah, that's just how it's supposed to work, but I can't. I have no idea what this is supposed to be doing right now, but okay. This is looking for the raw image types, okay? So all the types of images that you have. Now, in this case, I would capture my device for you, but you don't need that because you also have the file or the system viewer itself. And as you can see, these, you also have functions to restore the image to disk, which means that it's gonna mount another drive or create another disk or just restore it on the disk. But this is a heavy process. This is during the investigation, okay? And then we have the things that we want to capture or triage, so they collect. So we have two things. First, we have the file name search. Well, this is how you do it manually. I think that you guys will primarily use the live acquisition of auto triage. Yes, the case study itself here. What you do typically here is that you go to user activity, and then you specifically just to specify the devices in the case. Then you scan all of these. This is gonna take some time. And then you're gonna attach those to the case itself, so to this case somewhere here, okay, so that you have something that you recovered. Now all of this can be done automatically if you just do auto triage. So I'm gonna show you that right now instead. With the auto triage, instead of managing the case, when you click auto triage, all you have to provide here is the name of the investigator. So in my case, let's just do unknown Sue. And then you have the case format, so where exactly it's gonna be outputted, or whether it's gonna be a compressed file. Like for example, if you want to just directly take that to a USB drive. You can also create a memory dump with this. and capture everything over here. That includes their lower keys and encryption certificates, and this also includes passwords and logins, which I recommend that you guys don't. You guys disable this. And then you also have um, okay. Okay, I think they removed this. There are also functions that allow you to basically gather the browser histories and stuff like that, which you don't want. When you click start, this is going to only conduct the limit here. So the limit that we have is that you can only have 10 evidence items only with this. So you have to sacrifice some more versatility with this. Now, for example, right now it's just dumping the memory of the entire device, which we can then use for future webinars. Because, yeah. Don't worry, this doesn't pull screen. I never, because this is professional analysis, I guess. Now it's going to begin the analysis of everything that we have over here. At this time. Okay. Debug. Oh, it crashed. Okay. Um. Okay. It just crashed, but anyway. It also saved the case. For example, this one is over here because it generated the case automatically. I assume I'm gonna choose just to auto triage without a memory dump, and the rest can be and without a screen capture, and without these, and without passwords, and yeah, file listing is necessary. Let's just do this, I guess, and start this. Now this is immediately going to do this, right? Oops. Go to over here. Right, so this has begun the analysis of the process list, the user activity, system information, file listing, deletions of files, and clipboard data, as well as encryption certificates and stuff like that, which is not really that interesting, but yeah. Do you just close both of them? Okay, we're gonna wait. So it has already taken the cities. Now it's basically gathering the system information. And this also sometimes saves you a lot of things, but keep in mind that, as you can see here, system information has the columns that you really need to check. Don't start scrolling, because this can show you a lot of sensitive information, okay? For example, this has the computer name, the operating system, even my manufacturer of this device. This is then going to show you names of their phones if they ever connected it here. So that's why you never do that. You're gonna be exposed to something very sensitive. So what you do here is just go to the USB info. As you can see, this just immediately gave you the information of that, like over here. But this is a very sensitive information collector because this is meant for investigations. So if that's all this gives you, I recommend that you guys check this yourselves. For example, this one does it both in the USB registry, not only registry key, but the event logs as well as recovers them and stuff like that. It has a lot of things basically. This also shows you the commands. Okay, this also shows you the commands it uses to capture those. Right, so this also uses the WMI and stuff like that. So the next thing this also checks is the user activity. And this is still doing that. And we also have the passwords, which, right, so it's only 10 items. Passwords, which I recommend you never check. So everything that you see green on is what it has already collected, as you can see over here. So the next thing is the user. Okay, let's go to the deleted file search first. This one can be sorted by the date of deletion. You can configure the columns and also, restore to defaults. But for some reason, right, you can't really. Oh, it's still going. It's still in the process. So you can basically then sort these as date accessed or date modified. I recommend that you do at least date accessed, because obviously you access the file when you delete it and stuff like that. So then we have the user activity, which, as you can see, as both of you can see, has every single artifact that I have ever explained to you. And that includes mounted volumes, so other disks, USB drives. That also includes where is it? Okay, well, there's also history. There's also bookmarks from the browsers. It also includes background activity moderator. Well, you only have to, have this location as well, yes. And then you have the Windows timeline. This one is, what's it called? Activities cache. So this one is not really that useful if they have things disabled and stuff like that. You can also check the timeline. So this shows you when exactly these operations happened. Sometimes you can just double click on them. In this case, this happened around 10 p.m. This happened around 12 and 13. There's September 2025, blah blah, stuff like that. This also has jump lists. It has user assist, event logs, even if you want to check those. So as you can see, this has a lot of things. Okay. So the way you would navigate through those is that you would have to check the information, so the event information of the device. When you click on this, or when you double click on this, it opens the event log viewer that lists everything that is here. So this is easier, okay? So I recommend that you double click on it to scan everything. And then you have the information. This has the same information and same build as regular event viewer. And then you can also just scan a folder. For example, if you want to just scan all event logs, stuff like that. And then you have the other drives, and then you have the application and services drives, hardware events that were captured, Internet Explorer events, PowerShell events. These are very good things, to be honest with you, because, there's also a clipboard history, but only if it is, enabled with Windows V. If I just, if I clear it, it's there. And it also has auto-run commands, so everything that starts on Windows Startup, installed programs, date of their installation, like OS forensics, search everything, system info and stuff like that. We also have the recent docs, so the most recently used. This also has the links to where they came from. So keep that in mind when you search something. And it also has the downloads. So yeah, there is that. Then what you can do also is that is this still okay? So this is still going. Let me just stop this. And we have to wait for this because everything is gonna be generated as a report, as an HTML report, and I'm gonna show you the fun parts about it there. Now, I recommend that you guys also, test this on your own device, because it's more fun that way, and that you learn how to utilize it more on your own device. Okay, so everything has been generated, and then we have the managing cases. Was it this one? I think it was this one. Yeah, I think it was this one. Now we have to just generate a report, which we already have, and just view this. If you want, you can also export the logs. how do we open this? Open containing folder, okay. And then you have the cases over here. The latest one, so this one is obviously the case that we have. And then you have the exports, and then you have the HTML report. Well, double click on this. This just takes you exactly to the report of the case itself. For example, you have the case info, you have the attachments, so what files were attached. When you click on this downloads the file listing for you. For example, here we have the files, but this is going to take some time. You also have the user activity. You have the memory or process list snapshots, search results, verification, and stuff like that. So as you can see, we have everything over here. Okay. Now this is the entire timeline. Okay. So you have successfully exported a timeline, a Windows timeline, which you're gonna be able to analyze now because you have all the dates over here. So these are the file creation dates and attributes. So this is basically MFT. So master file table. So yeah, that's what you're gonna be able to check here. Although you should be using Timeline Explorer for this and not Microsoft Excel. And then you have the user activity, which, by the way, has a lot of things, although it's 8 kilobytes. It shows you exactly what you did, what I did, and also clipboard. So this is very, very sensitive stuff, okay? A lot of stuff that you are gonna be able to gather from these things. Especially you can also check the PDF report. Right here. This also has the HTML report, which is the same thing, just differently packaged. Right, so as you can see here, it gives you a lot of information. And this is the timetable, so exactly what you were looking for. When you click on this deletes everything. So for example, this one downloads, downloads the deletions in this case. You open this gives you a list of downloaded or deleted files. And in this case, it also has the names of them. So let's just look for .exe, for example. Right, so you have all of this. It's good, right? It's very nice, but it only has 2 files with extensions. Otherwise, it's just, yeah. This presents are the recovery qualities, so how likely they are to be recovered. So the next thing that you can check in this case itself. Okay. What you can do is that you can load the case. Then you can go through all of these yourself, manually, if you want to. And you can also just, edit and do everything with this case. So in this case, let's just check, for example, the user activity scan. It's going to open the file itself of the user activity. And thumb cache is interesting, which, so this shows you the screenshots, by the way. These are screenshots. These are the icons, and thumbnails are screenshots of your device, even if you did not take them. Even if you did not take those screenshots. So this is what I was talking about previously. See, so I never took those. They are here. Now, that is a very good question. I think it does. Or not. No, it doesn't. Because they were never taken by the user. These are Windows basically tracking what you do on your device. So even this one, for example, this one, thumb cache indexes. So as you can see, there's a lot of things, but I don't recommend that you guys ever. I recommend that you guys never access this, because sometimes because this is uncontrollable. Okay, you can't control this. And however, with the icons, on the other hand, I recommend you check the icons, because sometimes you'll be able to see if they have installed, for example, or cheats with icons, because that's what these show you. So yeah, that's all about the thumb cache, which I mean, I just don't recommend you guys ever use in an actual thing, because it's very sensitive. On the other hand, as I said, you only have 10 different acquisition items with the auto triage, so the rest you have to do yourself. Okay? In my case, let's just do the create the full timeline. This is just gonna scan and analyze everything, absolutely everything. By everything, I mean everything over here that you saw over here. I don't recommend doing that, but I recommend doing that for research purposes. For example, there are hundreds of things over here. Okay, a lot of things that you can just analyze. Anti-forensic artifacts, you saw that, right? Right. So these artifacts are what they created. These ones don't come with the free version, so you actually have to buy so that you get the database of known anti-forensic methods. I mean, I'm gonna just do that, enable these, and just create a full timeline for that to work too. Yeah, so this is an actual digital forensic investigation. You also have the program artifacts. These ones are actually prefetch and armcache. So if WinPrefetch doesn't work, you always have this. Because this has the mapped files separately, so all of these are files, and it has mapped directories separately as well. Okay? So for example, if we go to clone host, if I can find it, or just let's go to the CMD. So all of these are the files that were loaded in CMD, and all of these are the folders that CMD accessed. Yes, no, it doesn't show indexes. That's a good question. Okay. And then you have the ARM-cache. ARM-cache is basically the most useless artifact, but it gives you a lot of information because it's from registry, something that you can't really get from the regular ARM-cache parser. So let's just do, this has applications, shortcuts, device containers, so the USB drives, for example, PNPs, drivers, which I should have probably showed you guys this yesterday. But okay, you guys are like here. This also gives you availability or permission to actually analyze vulnerable drivers as well. So for example, driver ID, which one is very new. Can I find system? Okay, I just tried searching and it just crashed. But you get the point, right? You can find specific other drivers that are not, let's say, that are not legitimate. Let's say it like that. And you can just analyze that. This also has the shadow copies analysis. How do I open the case? Oh, I have to open the case, okay. Okay, how do I just right click? Yeah, okay. So this case is open now. Yes, it is open. Now we can analyze the shadow copies. Now this gives you two different items. it is very useful because it's an actual forensic utility. And this one, first of all, you have to press find shadow copies, so that it finds the old snapshots of this drive. For example, it found 2 shadow copies. Oh, actually, this is, I think, oh my god. Alright, so it crashes a lot, but don't worry about that. So always make sure to double click the case you are analyzing for. Yeah. And then you have the shadow copies that you can analyze is over here in the devices. So what you can do with these is that you can check for file deletions and older, for example, things on the device. So users, this one doesn't even have my username. So it's default user. And then you have the downloads. So nothing downloads. Maybe, no, oops. Maybe I deleted something. Maybe I moved something from downloads. And yeah, so this is also another shadow copy. So users also doesn't have my username. Has nothing in downloads and stuff like that. So you have the point basically, right? That's what shadow copies are. Those are the copies of the device in the past. And then you also have the remote acquisition, which I can't use because I don't have 2 computers, or even if I did, this would require me to connect to the network path and stuff like that. Then you can acquire the device remotely. So that's what that is. You also have indexing. And this is not really. This is for search purposes, so file search purposes, for example. Remote device acquisition stat. So this is usually, I mean, if it is done for a criminal investigation and they have a court warrant, they can do that. And they also have to know a lot about it, and the other machine has to connect. However, in the business environment, this can also be used for those purposes. And then you have the program artifact. Program artifacts cache. Did I showcase? All right. So you also have the new files, device containers, shortcuts. Yeah. So these are the things that I recommend you do yourself. You can also do this on shadow copies, by the way, just so you're aware. Yeah. Yeah. Then you have the mismatch files. This is not necessarily useful, but sometimes maybe it can come handy if you want. This uses the rejects, so it excludes types like unknown, stuff like that, and looks for the mismatch of files. For example, yeah, so this is a lot of things, to be honest with you. There's a lot of information. This is, quite a useful search, but I've never used this. I have no idea what this can be useful for. I imagine for nothing, I think. And then with the file viewer, this is just a file content viewer. You have a file name search, so searching all of the files. You have the raw disk viewer, which is the viewing of the image itself. So even if you don't RAM dump the device, you can search everything through this. You're welcome. Okay, we're about to also actually finish the webinar because that's all there is about all this. So all you guys have to remember is that this exists. This helps you to create a timeline, and there are resources that you can use to create those timelines. Okay. So those are the analysis pages. Do you guys have any questions, or in this case, about anything else that was not discussed here? So, do you guys have nothing really? Okay. Well, you never have questions, so that's why I told you to prepare 50 questions. Yes, okay, thank you very much. So I'm gonna send all of you um, the research material further about the timelining on the devices, so what they really mean. It's a very simple definition, you just create a timeline of things. So yeah, I'm gonna send you guys everything that I have prepared or will prepare by tomorrow, because we have a 5-day or 4 days break until the next time. So I hope that you guys learned something from this webinar, at least about OS forensics, about acquisition and stuff like that. Okay.